Alright, so we're doing brakes on this 7,000 pound axle. There's supposed to be grease fitting on the end. This one had a bit of an accident at some point, so I got this removal threader, rethreader kit. And it's just like an easy out. And sometimes you get lucky. Look at that. And there's the grease fitting. What it does rather, is when this cap is on the outside of the hub, like that, you can take this rubber plug out. Now, you just pry it out, trying to hold the phone with one hand and show you, but it just pries out. I don't have a screwdriver. Oh, there we go. You can see how the lip is there. Just push that out. Okay, so once that's on there, you'll be able to look at that grease fitting and grease it with the wheel on. And what that does is you have a bearing set in here. You can see this one was beat up. But anyhow, the bearing will ride here, and the other bearing rides here in your inner seal. So when you put the grease in here, it goes through and it comes out at an angle this way, and it greases that back bearing or the inner bearing, and then it'll fill this cavity. It'll fill this cavity up between this bearing race and the inner bearing race. Fill this cavity up, so when it heats up, the grease will run into this, and then this is where the seal sits. So the grease just stays between this seal, and basically this is your outer seal, if you want to call it that. But so that's what we had to do, is get this grease fitting out of there so I can put a new one in. The old backing plates just come off with 5 bolts, and you cut the brake wire. There's 2 wires, and you can hook them back together any way you want, doesn't matter. As you can see, there are 2 white wires that come to the brake shoe, and then the wires are red and black up there, but it doesn't matter. For whatever reason, it's just making a magnet, and this will come out. It'll stick to this part of the drum, and when it sticks to that, the shoe, or this, will move backwards because that's the way the wheel is turning. And when you do that, the drum, see the front shoe come out? When the front shoe comes out, it'll catch the front of the drum, and then that'll kick the back one backwards, and that'll catch the back of the drum. And that's pretty much how the drum brakes work. So you take these 5 bolts off. Well, after you take this, there's a pin, like a cotter pin, and then a nut and a washer, and then the bearing. So here's the nut. It's a Castle nut. And then here's the cotter pin. It goes down through there. And it can be bigger than that, just as long as it goes in that hole and locks it. And then the washer is a thick black, yeah, it's black now. Thick metal washer. That goes on the outside of the bearing. And then after you take all that off, everything slides off. And on the inside, the seal sets there, which once that inner bearing, or the inner bearing is in, this seal will go there. So when you pull it off, I'm replacing everything new. But if you were going to do new bearings with the old drum, but this old drum is toast on the inside because it almost fell off. Anyway, actually, I think it did fall off and they put it back on. So you would pop this out from the inside just with a screwdriver and a hammer. You would just put it in from the other side, pop it down, and then you have to pop this race out. You can use a chisel. I like a brass punch. You could use a long bolt. I've done that because you really don't want to put a new bearing on an old race because they wear together, obviously. I mean, yes, you can get by in an emergency, like if you're going down the highway and your bearings heat up and you're on the side of the highway and you have an inner and an outer bearing with you, you could, and as long as you had grease with you, or they were pre-greased in the box, like if you had greased them and put them in the box, you could throw it on there and you could get off the highway quickly, even if you didn't put an inner seal on it. But I wouldn't go too far and I would drive slow. But for emergencies, you could do it. So I've greased the bearings up there, and the other one is over here. And the way you do that, if you don't have the cone greaser, is you put a dab pile of it in your hand, and then when you take the bearing and you put this side down, like this one is, and you push it down a little at a time, you know, and you'll see the grease come up through, and then you turn the bearing, it'll come up through, turn the bearing and do a little more, turn it, do a little more, until it comes up on all of it. And that's how you pack. It's called packing a bearing. But there's also a cone. You can put a cone through it. There's a bolt that goes through it and a grease fitting, and it sandwiches it, and then you push grease in and it goes in through here, and then it comes out here when it's full. I could do another video packing a bearing. Maybe I'll do that on the other side. And I'll throw that in here. But so now what we're going to do is we're going to throw the bearing in there because it's already packed. And I normally fill this up with grease in this spot here because this is not on every trailer. So there's no way to put more grease between the bearings. So I always fill that up before I push it on there. But being so that I can grease this after, I'll just grease, put the bearing in there, put the seal on it, and then it can be slid on, and then you put the outer bearing on, the nut, the washer, then the nut, and then you have to set the drag on the brakes. But that's a bunch of other steps, so we will let you go for now, and we'll go from there. I'm just going to put that grease fitting in now.